computers are not just for business and things and that type of stuff. They're things to have fun with.
I did an invention on a quicker way to get to Hawaii.
Stephen and Martha are two of more than 700 gifted and talented students in the Aurora school system. When they aren't studying math or English, they take part in a special class that deals with solving real-life problems. Barbara Wilson has been teaching gifted students for 4 years and says this program is designed for children who have above-average creativity, ability, and motivation.
Each activity that the students do in this program is very much student-centered, as opposed to teacher-directed or teacher-centered. And so we can facilitate for them the opportunity to work with mentors of interests of their own at age, chronologically 8, where they're really thinking in an area at maybe adult level, so that they can learn at an early age the enjoyment of learning.
Some of this year's projects cover inventions, energy, and science. The kids even built their own hovercraft as part of a study on alternative fuel systems for future transportation. Unfortunately, they haven't quite worked all the bugs out yet, but then again, they told the Wright brothers that man would never fly. In Aurora, Betsy Dill for Live on 7.
And like the Wright brothers, it takes some money to keep this program afloat. Betsy says that some of the gifted students' activities even help raise money to supplement what the school district can provide.
And Bill, another story on another gifted student in Fort Collins. A 13-year-old Fort Collins student has designed a puzzle cube which is more complicated than a Rubik's Cube. And he plans to build it after he graduates from college in about 3 years. Stuart Jacoby reports from our Northern Bureau.
College life can be an adjustment for anyone, but there's a 13-year-old student here at Colorado State University who is so intelligent, adjustment has not been a problem.
Jorg came to college from 8th grade. He's here because in junior high he was so far ahead of his classmates in basic knowledge he wasn't learning anything.
For example, in math I was learning algebra, which I already knew. It was just sort of a bore.
Jorg is taking credit courses through CSU's continuing education program. He'll be a full-time student next fall. Right now his college grade average is 4.0. He's making such a respectable showing in an engineering dynamics class that the man who teaches it thought Jorg just looked young.
As a matter of fact, until just recently, I wasn't even aware that he was anything other than just another student who looked awful young.
I believe that he can do things that our juniors certainly can't do, and his area of expertise in computers is far above any of our seniors.
Jorg knows at least 4 computer languages. He wants to be an electrical engineer like his father. That requires a lot of math, which comes very easy to him. He can't explain it, but when he sees a complicated problem, he just knows how to work it. Jorg has some advice for gifted students who might be bored with school.
Try out going to college or try out another grade and see if you can either go into college like I did or skip a grade.
There is one course that this mathematical wizard has a little trouble with and has to study. It's history. But with a little study, he says, it's no problem. From Fort Collins, Stuart Jacoby, the North Bureau, on Live on 7.
Jorg says there is one thing about junior high he does miss, playing soccer during the noon hour.
Stands out in another way, too. He has 32 college credit hours and a 4.0 grade average. You might think he'd have a problem adjusting to college, but he says no.
The only thing that's been unusual is occasionally when I'm going to class, somebody will say, "How old are you?" I sort of look over and wonder about me. It feels strange, but other than that, everything's fine.
He says he was going through school at the normal rate until a couple of years ago when he developed an interest in physics. That led to tackling college courses, and so he says he basically skipped 9th grade and high school.
I can make it look like 1/2 m sub I, and what? For b sub I now, I can talk about a rotational.
Obviously, it's not an easy course, but Jorg's the only one in this class not taking notes. He says he's got total instant recall of what he hears or reads. He plans to have his bachelor's in electrical engineering by the time he's 16. Then he'll get a master's or doctorate and then go into business for himself. He says he'd like to invent a practical electric car because, in his words, nobody's done that yet. In Fort Collins, John Scott, 9 News, Northern Bureau.
We should know this week whether drivers and mechanics for the Regional Transportation District will be obsolete.
Although not on the market yet, Brown has developed a new, more complicated cube with 98 parts rather than Rubik's 26. While his accomplishment is rather amazing, even more amazing is the inventor himself. At 13 years old, Jorg is essentially an engineering student at Colorado State University. He takes only an advanced vocabulary course at Fort Collins High School. In his free time, commuting from high school and CSU, Jorg designed the new cube in his mind. Karen Merritt was in Fort Collins today and asked Jorg what sparked his interest in the cube.
A while ago, I read a Scientific American article about the cube, and it talked about various different ways of coloring the cubes, and it talked about some people who were trying to invent a 4x4x4 cube, which is 4 layers in each direction. And I thought to myself, and I was wondering how to do that, and they said, well, why not make a 5x5x5 cube? It seemed easier to me.
Jorg hopes to sell the cube and makes enough money to start his own business. So far, he seems to have interested a California company with his idea. Jorg's father, Robert, has had a strong influence on his son. He's been teaching Jorg mathematics and computer science since he was 3 years old, and it seems to have paid off. Only time will tell, though, if the brown cube will leave the Rubik's Cube in the dust. Preparations are underway for a piano marathon. The event is sponsored by the